So we are now recording. As I said, every question, if you ask a question at any point in the presentation, and at the end we'll answer it live, so everyone benefits from listening to the answer. So I'm going to share the screen, and as we share the screen, you'll start to see the PowerPoint come up, and then we'll go through the PowerPoint slide by slide. And don't worry, pop a question onto the Q&A at any point in the presentation, because we'll deal with everything at the end as well. Okay, so everyone should see the presentation of the PowerPoint now, which is in front of you, as well as a little icon of me in the top corner. So today's webinar is going to specifically focus on studying at Masaryk University, which is in Brno, the Czech Republic's second biggest city. A lot of the information in this presentation is going to be common to all of the Czech programs, and we will be discussing other Czech universities as we go through the following few weeks. There is a new section of our website at the top called webinars, and you'll be able to see there the webinars that we've got planned over the coming weeks. We're going to update those over the course of the rest of this week, so you can see the different webinars that we're offering for different universities as we go through this spring into the summer period. But today we're going to focus on Masaryk University, which in terms of the number of applications is by far our most popular program in the Czech Republic. So for most of you, the Czech Republic is a country you'll be very familiar with. A Central European country, north of Austria, south of Germany, west of Poland and Slovakia. Around about 10 million people, which I say to British candidates is about the same population as London, squeezed not into one city, but to an entire country. So as a result, there's a lot more space and a lot more distance between the cities and things in between the cities for people to do. And I've visited the Czech Republic on many, many occasions and seen much of the country, but I've still got a lot more to see as well, which I'm hoping to do over the coming years as more and more of the students that I work with go and study in the universities in this fabulous country. It's a landlocked country, so for those students who are from Britain, you are going to have to go away to the sea, but very easy to get to as well. Both Brno, where Masaryk University is based, and Prague, the capital city, have airports which are serviced from across the world. London, for example, has direct flight connections into Brno as well as to Prague, but Prague itself has connections to all over the world, with flights to Dubai and to mainland China, as well as every single European city, both the capitals and the secondary cities as well. But the Czech Republic has been at the center of education and innovation for many, many years. And as we go through the presentation, some names that will come up will be quite familiar to most people who've studied the sciences. So there we are, right in the center of Europe, about a 1 hour, 40-minute flight from the UK, or a short train journey from Germany or from Austria. In fact, I've taken the train from the Brno into Vienna before now, and the connections are extremely efficient and extremely cheap as well for students. So as well as spending 5 or 6 years studying in one university in one particular town, students are going to have that opportunity to see a lot more than just what they're going to see in their local area or even in the Czech Republic. One thing that the Czech Republic, I think, benefits from is an exceptionally efficient Germanic type system of running things like public transport, but on the other side of that has a much lower cost of living. And on the Global Peace Index, it's consistently ranked as one of the safest countries in the world. And this is something which is extremely important to many students, as well as parents who are perhaps going to be funding their child's education over a 6-year period. So when I'm delivering this presentation in Hong Kong, for example, I'm always asked how safe the Czech Republic is, say, compared to the UK. And I think at the last time I checked the Global Peace Index, the Czech Republic was, I think, somewhere from 7th to 11th safest country in the world, compared to the UK, which was down in the low 40s. But don't quote me on that. That's something I'll probably go and check straight after this webinar. But it has a long history of education. Charles University is one of the oldest universities in the world, established in the 1300s. So as well as studying, you're going to get the opportunity to travel across this amazing country, seeing castles, spas. Most of my Czech friends have 2 homes. They have an apartment in the city and a cottage in the countryside, because they have that luxury of having all that space. So there are It's a very different way of living, perhaps, than for those of us that are from the UK or the US or big cities in Asia. You are able to get out of the city very easily, very quickly and cheaply to get into a very clean, beautiful countryside and explore the wonderful culture and environment of this part of Europe. And the Czech Republic is separated into three main areas. You've got the northern part, what's called Bohemia, and the southern part, Moravia. And there's a small part in the east called Czech Silesia, and Silesia goes into Poland as well. But Brno is in South Moravia, so the Moravian part. People would say that the northern Bohemian part is the beer area and Moravia is the wine area, but you'll tend to find there's very little, people's drinking habits don't tend to differ across the country greatly. But South Moravia has been considered the slightly more temperate as well as agriculturally productive area of the Czech Republic in its past. And Brno is the second biggest city in the Czech Republic with around about 300 to 400,000 people living in there. But one thing is a huge proportion of that number are students. About 17% of the population of Brno is students. So as a result, the entire city itself is very set up to students. There's lots of things to do, lots of cultural activities to do. And as a result, it has got that focus very much on the university sector and not just run by the universities. You'll find that the universities and the local authorities work very closely together to ensure things like student travel permits are very cheaply, readily available, as well as lots of activities for students to engage with the local town and the local community. At this moment in time, a number of our students who are 4th, 5th and 6th year medical students have decided to remain in Brno, and they're actually working in the local hospitals, volunteering their services as all hospitals across Europe come under greater demand. And that's probably due to the level of ownership the students feel about their city, as well as the ability to use their skills and their knowledge to benefit the local community. It is extremely well connected, so you can get direct trains to Vienna, to Berlin, to Dresden, to Budapest. They all go through Brno. Direct flights to London, Stansted with Ryanair. This makes it an extremely popular university for UK-based students because they can just take a very cheap, quick flight from London into Brno, meaning that they feel perhaps more connected to their parents or their families should they wish to return home for the occasional weekend. As well as obviously being a second biggest city, only 400,000 people, so smaller by compared to other cities across Europe. It's an extremely green city, so you don't have to get out far to get into parks. And just walking around the city, you will identify there are a large number of green spaces between the different faculty buildings. Public transport is extremely efficient and also extremely cheap. If you take the train into Brno from Prague or Vienna, you will then arrive at the main train station, and right outside the main train station are all the tram stops which get you around the city. Next to the main train station, you've also got the main bus station, and you can take buses to various cities across Europe as well as across the country from there as well. And again, they are extremely cheap. I have taken a bus from Brno to Prague, and it's cost me €4 before now to get a flight back to the UK from Prague. So extremely easy to get around, extremely cheap to get around. I've only ever rented a car once in the Czech Republic, compared to many other countries like the US, where every time I go, I have to rent a car. So if you want somewhere where you're going to be able to get around and see a lot of the country, perhaps being in Brno is a very good place to base yourself. But it's also a city with a very long history of academic excellence. And most of you will know of Mendel, who was the father of genetics. And he was actually a monk in an abbey in what is now Brno in the Czech Republic. And he lived and worked there and did much of his research there as well into the genetics of pea plants. And that's something which most students learn at their GCSE level education when they're starting to learn about the basics of genetics. So the university is built around this local culture of academic excellence, even though the university itself is relatively modern compared to most other universities in the Czech Republic and parts of Poland, etc. Students do enjoy their life in Brno. They find it an extremely agreeable place to live. It lacks the big city rush that you would get in the likes of London or Prague, for example, or Vienna. So a lot of people describe Brno as the world's biggest village, where they can actually, get around very quickly, very easily, and everyone knows each other. So even if they go to the town, they will probably bump into some people they know, or they can arrange to go to one of the local meeting spots. This one on the bottom here, this nighttime picture where this bar is actually quite a famous area, which is literally just around the corner from the main square, where you'll see on the right-hand side here. So it's a very good place, yes, to attend a university with a world ranking, with an extremely impressive graduate employment rate. But it's also an amazing place to live for 6 years, because there's always something to do regardless of the season. So when I was in Brno with some colleagues from Hong Kong, we were there during the local wine festival, which takes place in October, sometime October, November. And then at other times in the summer, they've got different events going on, live music events, etc., in the main town square. And students do love living in the city. Studying medicine dentistry is tough. It's going to be a hard experience for the next 5 to 6 years of your life. So it's important that you're going to be somewhere that's going to allow you to balance that hard work that you're going to have to do with giving yourself a break and a rest. And Brno certainly does that. And those people that engage with Brno, the city, really well, do find that they perhaps experience things that they wouldn't experience at a UK university, or even if they stayed at home to study for their next 6 years. Now, I said Masaryk University is not an ancient university compared to Charles. It was established not long after World War I in 1919, and is named after the first president of Czechoslovakia. But it is not just a medical school. While we're talking about the medical faculty today, you've got to bear in mind that students who go here, whether that be you or one of your students or sons or daughters, is going to be part of a much bigger facility, a much bigger university with many different faculties. And in fact, even the medical students get the opportunity to add some credits onto their medical degree from other faculties. So in the first year, you can take some elective modules to add on to your credit book from faculties outside of the School of Medicine. So you will come across some of these other faculties as well. The medical faculty, which the building here, is one of the largest faculties, but you're going to be part of a much bigger organization where your work is influenced by research going on in the sciences, in education, in economics, and especially in things like social studies, etc. And one of the new facilities available at the university is going to be a multi-faculty facility, which, while predominantly focused on medicine, is going to have involvement from some of these other facilities as well. Students do ask me, say especially compared to the UK, how multicultural Brno is. And because of the number of universities and because of the number of programs taught in English, it has an extremely large international student body. It's extremely active in the Erasmus scheme. So whenever I'm in Brno, I'm come across students who are on exchanges from universities across Europe and much further afield as well. So you'll find there are a huge number of international students, and you don't have to go very far in the town itself to bump into many other students from across universities all over the world. Over 90 countries are represented at Masaryk University, so a huge number of students, 1,500 for example, come from various countries to study, whether for their full degree or on an exchange agreement in the university. And as I said, because it's not a capital city, students are able to perhaps do a lot more. Their money goes a lot further than perhaps living in Prague or Vienna, etc. But it's not just a university that teaches. It is a research-intensive university, and that adds to its really impressive world ranking. Many students actually get the chance to get involved with this research. So one of my students, who's a fourth-year medical student, he's already had his name on 4 peer-reviewed research journals, which is perhaps by his own admission, is something he would not have had the opportunity to do if he'd stayed to study in the UK. And that's something he has sought out and pushed forward with his lecturers, because all of his lecturers and professors have a dual role of teaching and research. And that is definitely something on his CV, which is going to set him apart from other people when he graduates, when he's looking for that top position in a hospital after graduation, or perhaps he wants to take a role which is joint clinical and research. That'll be something for him, which he can shows him as a different student or a different graduate, makes him stand out from the crowd when he's looking at perhaps future career opportunities. And this picture here is from actually one of the medical research centres next to the medical faculty as well. So this is literally on the same site as the medical school. So you will have medical school, research centre, but also the hospital on site. So students who are studying medicine and dentistry have everything they could possibly imagine in one area: the medical school, the research centre, as well as the clinical facilities as well. And the medical school itself is extremely impressive. It's a vast medical school, a huge medical school with bookshop on site, canteens, everything on one site, huge lecture theatres, and an amazing library as well. The anatomy department is particularly spectacular, and they have a museum of anatomy attached next to that, which I've been in, and there are some anatomical artifacts there which are unique, where so students are going to get the opportunity to study in some amazing facilities for what would be considered an extremely affordable tuition fee for many international students. And on this picture at the bottom here, you'll notice the medical school, which is the red kind of building. And on the right, as you look at the screen, you will see the hospital there as well, physically connected to the university. Coming out, you've got this bridge, this metal bridge here, and this metal bridge leads onto this area called Campus Square, which is a huge shopping area, as well as having canteens for students to be able to kind of take some time out during the day of their studies. So students don't have to go to the town centre all the time if they want to eat or drink in between lectures. And the library itself, and this is an actual picture of the library, is an impressive facility as well. I've been in this with my students who've been studying there, and I've bumped into many of the students that we've worked with over the last 6 years in the actual library. Thankfully, that's where I found them. But the facility itself is a huge online library, as well as traditional books and periodical reading areas as well. And there's always space. And there's different areas of the library set aside for different work, so small rooms for problem-based learning, as well as areas for periodical reading and areas for group working, etc. But obviously, in medicine and dentistry, clinical expertise and the clinical experience is significantly important for students. And Brno, being such a large city by Czech standards, has many different hospital centres for students to go into in the duration of their studies. As well as the main hospital, there's also a paediatric hospital and a maternity hospital as well. And this is perhaps something which other cities around Europe can't necessarily compete with in terms of providing clinical facilities for their students. And one unique fact about the university is going to be opening this year, probably maybe slightly delayed considering the current pandemic, but Brno is going to be the site of one of the world's largest clinical simulation centres. This is a €40 million construction, which has been awarded to Brno on the basis of a large EU grant. It's going to be a 5-storey simulation hospital with specialist equipment. So students will have the ability to do some quite unique problem-based learning projects in this resource. This will include things like going into a room where there will be what appears to be a patient on the table. It will actually be a dummy, a synthetic dummy, which is controlled by a computer in another room. And the student will be assessing this dummy, and then during that, the actual patient or the dummy would stop breathing, or perhaps go into a shock, or perhaps have an aneurysm or something like that, to basically test the student's skills of assessment and treatment under high pressure circumstances. Much better to have that experience on a dummy prior to going and experiencing that perhaps in the emergency room at the hospital. And after that, the students can then be debriefed, and they can identify perhaps themselves what went well, what didn't go so well, and what they would improve the next time. And they can experience this over and over and over again as they hone and refine their knowledge and skills on dealing with emergency situations. And that can include things like delivering a baby, and perhaps going through a traumatic delivery of a baby, etc. Okay, so that's been a summary of the university. Let's start talking about the programs. And there are 3 main programs we're going to discuss. There's the medical program, general medicine, 6-year program, the 5-year dentistry degree. There's also a 4-year physiotherapy program awarded at the university as well for students who are looking at rehabilitation. The program, the degree that the student gets is recognized across the European Union and also the UK. And also the USA as well. And I'll mention this now because it's come up. Masaryk University is one of only a few European English language medical programs which is on the US federal loan list. So if students qualify for US federal funding, they can take that funding and that can be spent towards the tuition fees at Masaryk University. And we have a number of students already in Brno on US federal funding. And for US students, this provides an advantage because it means they can go straight in from their US high school diploma rather than having to study a pre-med degree first. For medicine, 6 years, the first 3 years would be considered the preclinical years. Now, the third year will include some clinically relevant content, but the first 2 to 3 years are more like a science degree, learning things like anatomy, biochemistry, psychology, learning Czech language actually as well, because students will learn Czech language on the first 2 years of the program. But once you get towards year 3, the course then takes a slight turn and there is a focus now on looking at what happens in the abnormal situation. So while the first year and second year you'll be learning anatomy of the normal, when it comes to year 3, you can start to look at pathological anatomy. So what happens to the liver when cancer is present, or when cirrhosis is present, or hepatitis, etc. Then years 4 and 5, there will be a gradual increase in the amount of time spent in the clinical environment to get students ready for that 6th year, which is the internship year. Now, in that internship year, there will be a certain number of weeks spent in each area, followed by a state exam. Once those internships have been completed and the state exams have been completed, at that point, the student will be awarded their license to practice, which is then transportable across the world. Depending on where you want to take that license, there may be some licensing exams that you have to take in a particular country. So in the USA, that would be the USMLE. In the UK, there's a new licensing exam coming in called the Medical Licensing Assessment. But most countries have some form of licensing system in place if they don't already recognize the qualification from Brno, or sorry, I should say the license from the Czech Republic, or the USMLE, or one of the other exams which is often recognized across the world as well. Dentistry, very similar process, except it's 1 year shorter. So you will notice that the clinical years, preclinical years are years 1 to 3. Again, studying much of the normal with a focus on the head and the neck. The clinical will start halfway through year 3, so a little bit earlier. And year 5, again, it's an internship for a semester, followed by state exams in therapeutics, surgery, and orthopedic stomatology as well. Now, admission is actually fairly straightforward, and students do often ask me what IB grades or what A-level grades do I need to get in, and it's a little bit of a surprise when I say to them, you just need to simply pass your IB or A-levels or the high school system in the country you're applying from. But that's simply to give you the legal right to go to university. Your admission is going to be based on the university's own entrance examination. I'll talk about the dates that those exams are running shortly, but basically that exam is multiple choice comprising chemistry, biology, they're mandatory, and then the student gets a choice of maths or physics. So everyone will take papers in chemistry, 40 questions, everyone will take papers in biology, 40 questions, and then the third paper for medicine or dentistry is a student's choice of maths or physics. In the case of maths, you would have 20 questions rather than the 40, and each question is awarded 1 mark. There's no negative marking, so you start off with 0 and you work your way up, and you're looking for around about 60 to 65% overall. If you are taking the maths paper, each question is double weighted because you're taking half the number of questions. If you're applying to physiotherapy, you don't have to worry about maths or physics. You'll be focusing purely on chemistry and biology. Now, there are various ways to prepare for that. We can help you prepare for that, and the university can as well. But if you're going to be applying, you apply on the Medical Doorway website, and you look at this link here, which will be in the description on the YouTube video. You can then choose from that where you want to sit your entrance exams, because you run the entrance exams in more than one place. For 2020, these are the exam dates which are still due to happen. Now, we were planning on having an exam on the 4th of April, but considering the lockdown in the UK, that's now being temporarily pushed back until the 3rd of May. The exam in Hong Kong, scheduled for the 28th of May, is still due to happen, but we'll have to see if things change with the lockdown process in Hong Kong. But we also have exams in London and Manchester in July. And because of this year's circumstances, for the first year ever, we've got an examination available in mid to late August, again in London. Those 3 exams will only be for those students that don't need a visa to enroll this coming September. So UK, EU, EEA applicants can sit those exams in July or August. I would definitely advise going on to the Medical Doorway website and clicking our exams part of the nav bar. That will obviously show you where those exams are due to happen if there are any changes, as well as showing you the exam dates for the other universities that we work with as well. Okay, so preparing for those exams, there are different ways to prepare. We have a program we've put together, but the university also has preparation courses as well in biology, chemistry, and physics. There is also an opportunity for students that perhaps haven't taken sciences in the IB or the A level. They can do a foundation program, which runs from October until March. So it would add effectively an extra academic year to the studies. But perhaps a student who has not done particularly well at school in the sciences or didn't take sciences and is having a career change during their period of education, this is perhaps a quite unique opportunity for them to take this foundation program, which would cover chemistry, biology, physics, and also some Czech language. And at the end of that program in March, they would then take the entrance exam for admission the following year. So if you have a student, or you are a student who is not done sciences and decides to take this program, they would start this in October of 2020, would end in March 2021. They would then take their entrance exam at the university in March and then commence their enrollment in September of 2021 on the medical or dental program. Fee-wise, we are looking at fees charged in Czech krone. So you would pay the fees in Czech krone. What we've done here is done quite a rough translation of what the fees are going to be in various currencies. But the fees can be paid in 2 installments. Once you've received an offer, you will receive an invoice for the next years of academic fees. You can pay half that amount. So in the case of medicine, 150,000 Czech krone, which is about £5,000. And then once you've paid that, your seat is secure. Then you pay your second installment in the February of 2021 in this particular case. Okay, let me just minimize. I just had the chat feature come up, so I'm just going to minimize that for the moment. Okay. In terms of living costs, significantly cheaper than living in other countries around Europe, especially the UK. So around about £300 for a private room at the university dorms. Rooms can be shared to bring that cost down as well. But overall, you're looking at around about £800 a month for 10 months of the year to live. So things like health insurance, if you need to buy the health insurance, can be bought online and very cheap as well. You'll notice that compared to perhaps living in London, these are significantly lower costs. And one thing I've done is I've spoken to students about the cost of living, and they all say, yes, it's extremely cheap, but it does mean they've got to budget just as much as if they lived in the UK. When you're studying medicine and you're studying what is a very intense program and you're trying to eke out every minute of the day, especially in the run-up to, say, anatomy exams, it can be quite tempting not to cook for yourself and to live on restaurant food or takeaway food. And as they said, that's when the costs can mount up, although it is significantly cheaper than the UK. But because it's so cheap on a one-off basis, students often tempted more to actually live in that way, especially in the run-up to the exams, rather than actually cook for themselves. And students have, after a year or so, recommend making sure you stick to a routine where you are cooking for yourself, because it also is great for allowing the brain to recover as well as making sure that what you're fueling yourself with is of better quality. But this is an idea of the living cost. This can be increased, it can be decreased, depending on how the student wants to live. It is also possible to rent a private apartment as well, relatively cheaply, compared to in the UK or any other major European city, especially even Prague. One thing Masaryk has established, and this is something which has come from the student body, is an extremely organised association called MIMSA, which is the Masaryk International Medical Students Association. And they are extremely linked with the university management. They're actually there to support students through the program, and this is made up from elected representatives of higher years. And they will, as well as organising social events, whether that be the annual barbecue at the start of the academic year or laser tag karaoke events, etc., they will actually be able to help with things like anatomy. So the students do then take some of the first year students under their wing, and they do group anatomy lessons to help students get through what are considered the more intensive parts of the first year curriculum. They also arrange things like interviews with hospitals. So 3 UK hospitals are linked to Masaryk University, and that's based on students who've gone from Masaryk University back to the UK and commenced working there. And now they've linked formally up with those hospitals. So those hospitals do visit the university every year to interview the newly graduating doctors. And that's something which has been set up through MIMSA and the university as well. They'll also offer some clinical courses like cannulation, blood taking, and that's more for revision before students move into the clinical environment, because while they can learn those skills on models, as much practice as possible is great before doing it on a living, breathing human being. But in addition to that, they are extremely charitable organisation, and they set up organisations to make, or set up an events to make money for local charities in Brno, whether that be for refugees or for orphanages, etc. And that has actually led into the kind of culture that the students have set up, that are meaning that a lot have remained behind in the Czech Republic during the pandemic to work in the hospital there as well. This provides students with something to actually do outside of the classroom, as well as giving a great deal of ownership and giving back to the local community from which they are actually then getting their medical education. Right, for more information, this obviously was a whistle-stop tour of Masaryk University, but you can get more information on medicaldoorway.com or drop us an email, or you can get in contact with the university directly. The University International Office is extremely proactive at getting back to you. So please do feel free to drop the university an email directly, or myself at Medical Doorway. It's very easy to get in touch with us if you want some more advice. Any questions that you've got that we do answer on the Q&A session now, I said, will be obviously on the YouTube video, but if you've got a question perhaps which comes up later in the day or later in the week, or someone asks you a question and it wasn't dealt with in this video, please feel free to drop me an email. I would recommend heading to Facebook and signing up to our Facebook page, because all of the information that we put out there regarding exams and enrollments and different events and stuff go on there as well. In addition to that, do subscribe to our YouTube channel, because as well as this webinar, the previous webinars we've done, as well as different events that we've done, are there as well. So you can find out a bit more about Medical Doorway and about the universities that we work with. So what we're going to do now is we're going to head back to the desktop. And hopefully you can all see myself. Good, there we go, we're back now. So what we're going to start doing now is going through some of the questions. That was what, 35-minute presentation, which was around about what I was expecting. So let's go through now. Some people have put questions in on the chat feature, so I'll deal with that one first, then I've got a few questions on the Q&A feed as well. So the first question has come from someone saying, hi, I've completed an undergraduate degree in biomedical sciences and I've passed with an A-level grades of BCC. Can I still apply with those grades? Yes, of course. You 100% qualify for application, but you will have to take the entrance exam as well. What I would do is if you haven't filled in an application form on the Medical Doorway website, please do so, and we can take a closer look at your individual academic profile. Because as well as applying to Masaryk, it's often good to have some backup options as well. And we work with 18 different programs, so we can look at those which would be the best fit for you. Okay? Okay, we've got 3 questions here. Okay? So we've got, in regards to international students, would you have a rough estimate as how many students are from the African continent? In fact, we do have students from the African continent at Masaryk University. We've got students from Nigeria, from Ghana. I've actually got students from Tanzania as well. And we've had applicants from Kenya who've come through the IB system. I can't tell you how many there are, but there are definitely students from across the world, including African countries, every single year, including South Africa as well, and Botswana, where there are students there as well. So students are not from Africa, especially if they're from a kind of Black African background, won't necessarily feel out of place. Even many of our British students who are there are from African origin as well. So there will be opportunities to mix with those students from across the world, whether that be from a cultural perspective or whether that be from a national perspective as well. Exam dates for Armenian students. I don't have the exam dates for Armenia. There is the opportunity of taking the exam in June at the university itself, and you can come from Armenia to do that. Alternatively, you are eligible to take some of the exams that are taking place in the UK. So I would suggest dropping me a direct email so we can look at matching you to the universities that are, or the exam dates, which are going to best fit your individual circumstances. Hello, are there any exams outside the UK or Czech Republic? Right, there's nowhere you can take the exam in Georgia, the country. We run exams in the UK and in Hong Kong. Hong Kong's catered more towards the Asian area. As I said, if you are applying from Georgia, I would recommend looking at the exam dates now, and perhaps we're going to take a look at getting you to the UK or directly to the Czech Republic. Getting access to the Czech Republic to take the exam is not that difficult under normal circumstances, because you would get a letter of invitation from the university, or for the UK, you would get it from us. SATs are not required. Also, the tuition fee was per year and not per semester. So the tuition fees I stated there were annual fees. So reduce it by 50% and you would have the tuition fee for the semester, and you can pay per semester. So 300,000 Czech krone for the year, therefore 150,000 Czech krone per semester, which you can pay per semester. SATs are not required. If you have them, send them along as well. It's just good to overall give the university an overall idea of your academic profile. Does doing the UK CAT exam affect the Masaryk University application? No, it doesn't actually. Officially, you would need to take the university exam. So UCAT or BMAT is not required to apply to Masaryk University. So it doesn't necessarily affect the Masaryk University application. Okay. So we've dealt with the questions there. If there are any other questions, we can stay online, okay? Oh, right, another one. How many international students are accepted every year? So, right, we're just going to rephrase what we mean by international students, just to kind of give some clarification, because that terminology means some different things in different countries. So when we say international students, we're effectively meaning everyone enrolling on the English language program. We're not separating that from Czech, EU, and international. The university have 2 degrees, one taught in the local language, Czech, for local students, and the identical program taught in English for the international students. And by that, we mean everyone who's on the international program. We have roughly per year about 140 students enrolling at Masaryk University on both the medical dental programs. The vast majority of them are on the medical program, where there are more seats available. So around about 120, something like that, international students on the English medium program in medicine and dentistry every year. So 120 to 140. It can vary slightly from one year to the next, depending on visa processing and the number of people that accept the offers, but it's around that figure. Okay, are EU students considered international? Yeah, basically, when we say international students, we're meaning people on the English language program, regardless of their nationality. So the fee level for the English language program is the same for everyone, regardless of whether you're EU, non-EU, whether you're kind of EEA, it doesn't matter. Everyone would be considered an international student. What differs there is if you need a visa to study. So if you're an EU student or an EEA resident, or even at the moment UK, you don't need a visa to travel to the Czech Republic and study. But as far as your program is concerned, you would be considered an international student. Slightly just different. It's more semantics, to be honest, than anything else. But the fees are the same for everyone. So I said, what's the acceptance rate and how selective is the university? Uh, the program is criterion reference. So by that I mean you're not ranked against the other applicants. If you think about it, the university gets a large number of applicants every single year, and they roughly know how many people will apply and roughly what the performance level is on the entrance exam, because usually that fits within a normal distribution and might differ by a few percentage points every year. But when you're dealing with the number of applicants, it doesn't tend to differ that much. I would say the acceptance rate is around about 60 to 70%. So I would say 6 to 7 applicants that we deal with will receive an offer from Masaryk University. That might differ from one country to the other based on the education system. Our Hong Kong exams have an exceptionally high acceptance rate because the Hong Kong education system and the attainment in Hong Kong is higher than, say, Europe. But I would say you would have the ability to basically take the exam, and around about 60 to 70% of the students that we deal with do receive an offer from Masaryk University based on the predominant number of students we deal with, which are IB or A-level students. How many students apply to the medical program in English roughly per year? It's roughly 3 times the number of seats that are available, so 3 to 4 applicants per place. Now, what you will bear in mind is that a number of those students who are applying don't prepare well for the entrance exam, so their acceptance rates are going to be lower than perhaps others. Also, students are applying to other universities as well. So, because obviously the 3 to 4 doesn't match with the 60 to 70% of people that I said before. That's because a number of the students who are applying to Masaryk University will also be applying to universities in their home country. They'll also be applying to other universities in the Czech Republic or across Europe. And they may have more than one offer, and then may choose a different university compared to Brno. Okay? So roughly 3 to 4 times the number of seats that are available are the kind of numbers applying to the university. My students in the Kenyan education system 844, how would their applications be processed for admission? Okay. Basically, if you've got the legal right to go to university in Kenya of that year, from an academic perspective, you will then have the legal right to apply and sit the entrance exams for the Masaryk University enrollment in that same year as well. So if a student is finishing their education in 2020 on the Kenyan system, they then, and at the end of that, their qualification allows them to go to university in Kenya, then they can apply to study in the same year at Masaryk University. There are some caveats to that. The student will need to be 18 at the outset of the course. That's typical for medicine. If the student's younger than that, they'll have to wait for a year until they are going to be 18 in that academic year to be able to apply and enroll. But the process itself is the same because it's based on the university's own entrance exam, not necessarily on the education system that the student is taking in their country of origin. Okay, we are 1:45. At the moment, we've dealt with all of the questions, both on the chat feature, okay? Someone's just asked another question. Can you take the Masaryk University exam twice in the same year? No. If you can only take the exam once per academic year. So if you don't pass it, you're going to have to wait to the next academic year to take it again. You can't resit it in the same academic year. Okay, so if anyone's got any other questions, speak now or for Heather hold your peace, or more, probably just email us after the webinar. As I said, we're going to pop this onto the Facebook, onto our YouTube channel, and then propagate that across our different social media platforms as well. Hopefully you found that useful. I've certainly enjoyed talking about Masaryk University. It's an amazing university. It is a medical program. What I would say to students is you do have to be 110% committed to medicine. The amount of contact hours you're going to have are going to be significant, and the level of work you're going to have is going to be significant. But we've got so many graduates who are working in hospitals in the US and also the UK as well. So someone said, will you touch up the recording because you cut out from time to time? That's probably due to the internet speeds. Zoom is having quite a significant demand on it at the moment. The recording which is happening on my desktop here. So that shouldn't have much of an issue. So what I would suggest is do take a look at that There's something on the news today about Zoom being under such high demand at the moment. There's so much remote working going on, so the bandwidth is restricted. So don't worry, the video should be perfect. So where we did cut out, and it did give me a notification when the internet connection wasn't stable. If it does cut out, that shouldn't be replicated on the video. Okay, so if that's everything, we'll sign off. Do keep an eye on the Medical Doorway website and our Facebook page as well. We've got some more webinars coming up. We've got a webinar that will be published soon about studying a British medical degree in Malta. And we're also going to be doing a program about studying in Bulgaria as well, because we've got many, many graduates from Pleven in Bulgaria. They're the next 2 webinars we're going to be establishing over the next few weeks. I'll push that out on our Facebook page and also publish it on the webinar section of the Medical Doorway website. So please do keep an eye out for that. In the meantime, please stay home, stay safe. And once this whole situation has calmed down, perhaps we may meet face-to-face at some point in the future. Until then, have a great day, take care, and best of health.